Tracing African American history here in the mountains is now easier. It's with the transfer of Buncombe County slave deed records to the internet.
Scans of the county documents are now online, making them more accessible to historians, genealogists, and folks simply trying to trace family ties.
But there's another place that can also offer insight. It's a location many people visit, but few know about a certain area there. News
13's Frank Crocker joins us with a tribute to the forgotten.
It's one of those stops the Chamber of Commerce tells tourists not to miss. An Asheville landmark, ideal for a hilly stroll. It's also a cemetery. Opened in 1885, desegregated when the city took it over in 1952. Among the 15,000 buried there lies a local heritage that runs deep. Tucked away in the shadow of the Blue Ridge.
Here's Bessie Loyne.
In a quiet corner of the Montford district.
Date of death was 1932.
87 acres, known for its natural beauty.
How about Ralph Lee?
Its solitude.
He was only 14 years old.
Its solemn stone monuments, hand-chiseled many, many years ago.
And he died in 1932.
Paul Becker manages Riverside, all the records stored in this old safe.
Can't ever throw nothing away in the cemetery.
Riverside Cemetery, rich in local history. People come here to see the graves of famous authors, pioneering politicians, rows upon rows of war heroes. They are all on the tour map, but there are many others who are not.
There are hundreds of African Americans buried here that are unmarked.
Honor Moore came to Riverside in search of a spot to bury her mother. This is the area she was attracted to. Wide open, but what she found was so much empty space that's not empty at all.
These are voices from the past that are powerless to speak now, and you can see the injustice when you drive around the cemetery. I felt it was my civic responsibility to write a letter to City Council.
Josh Darty is the unofficial Riverside historian, the man who digs through those dusty old books, trying to find what some families come here looking for, clues about where their ancestors might be buried.
This is section DD, and there's 300 or more graves in here, and there's not a marker in this section at all. They could just barely afford the $5 to buy the plot. They definitely couldn't afford an extra $25 to put up a marker. There's only about 20% of the African American graves are marked.
That's 20% of more than 3,000. The estimate for slave graves, about 500. That number comes straight out of any history book.
Before 1850, I'd say that would be a good chance they would be slaves. Anything born after emancipation, after the Civil War, obviously wouldn't be.
As we look at Riverside Cemetery, and we were informed that there were a lot of unmarked graves, and then we found out there were a lot of African American slaves. It was one of those things that was very empowering, but one of those things that now we need to do something.
Asheville Mayor Terry Bellamy says the city is working with Buncombe County, trying to decide what might be an appropriate tribute. And she says there will be one.
I'm really proud of the fact that in our community we're going to recognize those individuals who have passed away with some type of monument, some type of marker, something to show that they were here.
I think this would be a great catalyst to think about all the cemeteries in Asheville that have unmarked graves.
Your kinfolk was just as important as Thomas Wolfe and O. Henry and everybody else. To somebody, those people are just as important.
Just some place to go and lay flowers down and remember their ancestors.
So now the questions are exactly what it'll be, where in Riverside it should be placed, and who will pay for it. Well, there's talk of applying for a grant, looking for private donors, perhaps a local artist to create the memorial. Organizers want it to be a community effort to remember the forgotten.